Thank you, Lisa, and welcome on our side of the studio. We're going to start with our panel on perspectives of the shareholders in a valuation negotiation. Very interesting topic. It was a bit new to me while preparing for it, but super interesting and relevant, and this is what we're going to try to achieve with this panel to give you some insights on this topic. With me is Jasmin Güngör, the general partner at Onsight Ventures. Jasmin, herzlich willkommen. Very welcome at our studio.
Yeah, hello, it's great to be here again.
Welcome. Markus Lebesmühlbacher, co-founder of Holloid, startup. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Rudolf Dömötör, director of Entrepreneurship Center at the VU Wien. Rudolf, welcome.
Hi, happy to be here.
And last but not least, Rudolf Zauner, innovation manager at VERBUND. Welcome, Rudolf.
Thank you for inviting me.
We have a very important topic, interesting topic and relevant topic. And we have different points of view on this topic. Let's start high level. Why are we talking about the valuation? Why is a valuation of a spin-off necessary? And let's bring some light into this topic. Jasmin, you want to start?
Yeah, if I think about the universities and the negotiations we have with universities, it's actually interesting that I think the valuation is not the thing we are talking about. If I want the buyout, if I want to buy the IP, then we could talk about it, how much it is worth. But the university always needs to assess how much an IP or patents can be worth during the next 10 years, which is very hard, of course. And this is why we are rather talking about how much royalty they want from a spin-off, or how much shareholding they should have. But I would also like to ask the other people here on the panel if they agree, because I think this is really an interesting aspect, that we are not trying to say how much is a patent worth now, or how much can it be worth during the next 10 years. We are rather trying to let the university participate in the value that this innovation can create in the future.
Is that the way to go, Rudolf?
I would take even one step further, because I think over the past, let's say 10, 20 years, quite some knowledge was created as universities with regards to tech transfer, and quite a strong focus on patenting and licensing. And I think from the perspective of the universities, the question is how can you achieve a point where you have a high level of shared interest between the university, the spin-off, and the investors. And I think that's a development that's happening right now with regards to the creation of investment vehicles at the universities, which I strongly believe will make these kinds of licensing negotiations probably much easier in the future.
Easier in terms of faster, more standardized, or where do you see the ease?
I think it will be faster. And the second aspect that you mentioned with regards to standardization, I think it's another development that we are seeing right now. Because in 2023, there was quite a big project in Austria, virtually including all Austrian universities, with the goal of developing a framework for spin-off strategies for the Austrian universities. So all of the universities were sitting at the table saying, okay, these are our goals, these are our experiences, these are our interests. So, and this framework will lead to a certain guideline of spin-off processes, and this will provide the whole ecosystem and the various universities with a more standardized approach. So we move from case-by-case negotiations to basically saying, okay, this is the set. If you're in that industry, that kind of technology, this is what we can offer you, take it or leave it, simply put.
Fantastic. Markus, from your own experience, what's your take on that? How were your negotiations around the valuation? Did you even have them? Did you go for a university as a shareholder in your company, or did you have kind of licensing or revenue share deal from royalties?
Yeah. Securing Holloid's access to the core technology, which comes from the university, is one of the two key main priorities at the beginning, at setting up the company. The other one was the agreement with the co-founders. So that's really critical, and it's something that needs to be tackled right from the start. And then we went for a license agreement. I think there it's very important to include some kind of buyout option, and I think ideally a pricing mechanism. So I think once those intense but ideally short discussions are concluded at the very beginning, everything needs to be clear and there should be no further need for any discussions, because as a founder or as a founding team, you have enough things to do. You need to take care of the market, you need to take care of the product, and there's basically no room to take further energy from you as a founding team to invest into that relation. So ideally, I would say valuation can be important at some point, but ideally I would say don't or avoid having the university on your cap table if it's not really needed. That way you don't need to take care of them. Have a license agreement where everything is clear, and then focus on what's really important. And that way you also create a lot of value. And that way you also create a lot of value for the university, because it makes you more successful, and it will ultimately benefit the university a lot.
Why do you think that having universities in the cap table can be problematic?
Well, we get feedback from investors that we talk to, some in Austria, many internationally, in Europe and even further abroad. And when we talk about our IP, the question comes up, well, who holds the IP? And is the university a shareholder in the company? And then we can quickly answer no. And that's the end of that discussion point. And that's a good thing, because we want to move forward quickly in those talks. And the more complex they are, the less you can have those talks, and the lower your chances of success with the whole company.
Before you answer, Rudolf, is that an issue for you when you invest in spin-offs? Do you say, I only invest if there's no universities in the cap table?
No, I wouldn't say this. And also with the Spin-off Austria conference, we highlighted that also the shareholding option could be a good option. But I think in Austria, there are now a lot of people who tend more to a licensing model for the reasons that you mentioned. And I think we need more time, and we need more standards and more blueprints to make this change. And honestly, there aren't so many universities at the moment, to my knowledge, that really ask for shareholding in a company.
Rudolf, what's your take on that? There, you mentioned the development that universities are going next level in organizing their governance around holding equity.
Yeah.
What is in the future?
So, I mean, right now, empirically, this is not an issue in Austria, because as of today, there are 2 universities in Austria with an investment vehicle. So it's non-existent, basically, in Austria. Secondly, and I think this is the question for the overall innovation ecosystem: what kind of role do the universities play for the innovation ecosystem? So if you have a look at the Austrian Startup Monitor, more than 80% of the founders graduated from a university. Around 1/4 of Austrian startups are academic spin-offs, either research spin-offs or started in a course or a program. So that's a quite an important contribution. Then we see that universities provide quite a lot of support to the startups, be it infrastructure, be it incubation programs, be it contact to providing a certain network. And on the other hand, we have basically no formal agreements. So the opportunity for the universities to have some kind of upside if a project really becomes successful is pretty low. So from that perspective, I really think it's really important to find a mechanism. And here we have the current initiative by AWS, the spin-off initiative. It consists of 2 modules. Module 1 supports universities in setting up professional investing vehicles. So here we have this standardization professionalism. And the second module refers to providing capital to funds that are investing in spin-offs. So there is working on the structures and additional money for spin-offs. And I think that's a great opportunity for the topic to really take off in Austria.
Okay. Rudolf, what is how do you as a corporate, as an enterprise, see the situation? What is your take on that? What are your interests in this process of negotiations?
Yeah, at VERBUND we have VERBUND Ventures. Via that company we invest in startups, mostly in late series or late seed or Series A in the clean tech sector. We haven't invested any spin-offs yet, to be honest. Yeah, but if we would invest in spin-offs, I think there would be a couple of points that would be very important to us. First and foremost, I think it's the team, yeah, their ability, where they come from, and also, for example, is the inventor also the founder or not? Yeah, I think this is a question to be asked and explained. Then, I think for such very early spin-offs or startups, it's very important to have a defendable USP. Yeah, that's really consistent and strong, because they don't have a minimal viable product or so. They are very early, and therefore I think you really need this kind of very strong position in terms of USP. And the third aspect that I see for spin-offs that is interesting to us or very important to us is their strategic value that they give. Yeah? If I invested in a spin-off, it should have a very strong strategic value for us. Yeah? And I think, well, I work in the energy utility sector. The energy transition is in full swing. We know there are lots of challenges ahead, and I think there are many spaces where spin-offs could have bold and disruptive ideas that could also help us as a corporate. Yeah? So I think not only the aspect of IP would play an important role, but also these other aspects like the team and how is the team and the IP actually linked. Yeah? All these kind of softer factors play a role as well. And I have to say, in the utility sector, we are very lazy with IP. There are not many patents, yeah? But in other sectors like in pharma, in biosciences, materials, so IP, of course, plays a far stronger role, and I think there's probably not a one-fits-all solution to that evaluation question.
Markus, would it make a difference in the future, like Rudolf mentioned, if universities develop their own professional venture units that would kind of be at your cap table? Do you think that would change the perception of some investors?
Yes. So right now, in the case of Holloid, we're still fully founder-owned, and this is good. This is not just good for us, but more importantly, it's good for the next steps. It makes the company faster, because we have one set of shareholders. They're all aligned. They're all sitting in the same boat. They're all involved in the company and doing day-to-day work. And that's why investors like it, because it makes everything easier. And one thing that investors really don't like is a flea circus of different shareholders. So I don't want to accuse anyone of doing bad investment management, but generally the more parties there are, the more friction there is, the more complex it gets. And one thing that you don't have as a startup is time. So the more friction and the more time you need, and the lower your chances are. So,
but that's that's not something that's specific to spin-offs. That you're talking in general for every startup.
Yeah,
yeah. So university, if it has a professional management for this equity shareholding, could be a good shareholder as well.
Right, and then it depends on the terms.
Yes,
and it should be terms that go with the others. So a flea circus, you could say, is not defined by the number, just by the number of shareholders, but it's actually defined by the different kinds of shareholders and the breadth of different interests you need to cover, and the amount of individuals with veto rights. So if there's no veto rights and they're all aligned in the interests and it's clear governance, then you can do it. But please only then.
Rudolf, is that the case?
I mean, first, I totally agree, and I think this is something that's being developed right now.
Okay.
To find this sweet spot, to be as founder-friendly as possible, and on the same hand, taking care that the interests of the university are taken care of. I'd just like to add another aspect to the discussion, because when we think in terms of, let's say, a University of Cambridge spin-off or a Technical University Munich spin-off, if you have them on the cap table, wouldn't that be some kind of a proof? Basically say, okay, they went through a great program, from the perspective of the investor. So I'm more likely to invest in them than if they wouldn't have them on the cap table.
We've been mentored a lot by the TU Munich and their environment and Unternehmertum, which is really a great startup ecosystem there. And I think when you already have IP and founders coming from Cambridge or TU Munich, you basically have that quality stamp already. So TU Munich is known because they do good research and not primarily for good investment, being a good investment fund.
Okay.
Right.
Although we did have one of the speakers today, I will not quote this correctly, but there was something about 2 billion euros investment last year in Unternehmertum, because I guess they draw attention to them and do a lot of work in this direction. I'm just trying to think out loud, because if generally I'm thinking if universities have more skin in the game, maybe they would increase their activities, they would maybe get engaged in spin-offs even more. Could that be an effect as well?
That would be my guess. And also with regards to more specifically develop a certain ecosystem around the university. So also thinking of the A+B incubators, for example, and others, or leveraging the alumni that we have that are active in various fields, using the alumni network to find your first pilot customers. I don't know. It always depends on the specific industry that you're in. But I think here the universities have a lot of strength and resources they could leverage, and they might be more willing to do so if they have skin in the game.
I think one of the speakers also quoted that there was a kind of international standard, maybe it's UK, maybe USA, that universities hold between 3 and 8% of shares of one spin-off. Would that scare you?
I think everything up to 5% is fine if they found the company and are founding shareholder. But in Austria, the universities that invest often want to take more. And I think what we need is really the reputation that in Austria, some universities take up to 5%, and that they're easygoing, and that the founders and all the other investors don't get problems. And with respect to the valuation, if we come back to the topic, some will say, okay, if we say it's 5%, then it's maybe not right, because in some cases the IP is more worth than in other cases. But if we try to make a thesis out of this stuff, finding the perfect value or the perfect percentage for the shareholding, we make it way too difficult. So it should really be easy, it should be understandable, it should have a good international reputation. And I hope that universities are now taking the next step and start to make things faster, better, and super easy.
Which we heard today is crucial to developing a good ecosystem. Rudolf?
Yeah, I think from a corporate point of view, I think the most important thing is to have a clear and transparent term sheet. Yeah, that everybody understands, that's easy. Yeah, that you know where you stand. Yeah, and whether the partner is a university or not, I think it's second. Yeah. Primary, the most important thing is to have a transparent term sheet, and from that you can start to work, you can do your due diligence, and everybody knows what everybody is up to. I think that's the most important thing. Yeah. And whether a university gets 2% or 5% or so, I mean, as you said, this is really depends. It's so much depending on the sector, on the IP. What about trade secrets? So how do you judge them? How do you evaluate them? So it's really very, very tricky to get into that. And I think also an important point that I would like to make is do not make a legal battle out of it. Yeah? Because nobody needs it. It's a lose-lose situation. Yeah? I think the spin-off has to concentrate to get their idea to a product. Yeah? And it costs money, it wastes time. So I think it's better get a compromise quickly, instead of negotiating a 0.5% here or there. So that's not worth it.
So if you would invest in a spin-off, then you'd probably have a clear look at what kind of deal does the university have with the founders regarding the IP.
Of course, yeah. Whether there are any royalties or licenses or whatever.
What would you prefer? Would you prefer to have universities as a shareholder or somebody who is just kind of charging the royalties?
I think this also depends a little bit on the IP, yeah. Whether it's a single patent that is granted or whether it's a family. What's the IP strategy of the spin-off? Do they need the university probably to come up with more patents that are then part of the spin-off? So again, I think it really depends, yeah.
Maybe one more aspect, Markus. We have a lot of excellent founders, BOKU experts, technology experts or domain experts, TU Wien. When negotiating with universities or with investors, do they look as well? We had this topic in one of the panels. Do they say, hey, do you have also business co-founder with you from maybe the business university? The team structure that Rudolf mentioned being crucial to the investors. How do you solve this as a researcher who is creating a company out of university?
Yeah, I'm a business guy.
Hey.
I am from VU. And I joined my very technical co-founders from Boku University.
Double very.
Yes, and I see that this was appreciated by investors very much, and I see that it's also very much appreciated by my co-founders, because then I can take care of such things, including especially the relation between those former researchers from university now negotiating with their own university, which might still be their employer. So you basically have some natural authority of the university over those people, and those are people who are, really good at inventing things, but they are just not used to or experienced with negotiating terms and investments. And that way, if you have a university or fund that's kind of pushing too hard, and a researcher that doesn't know and then has no experience in this, you could just end up with creating a poison pill for that company before it even starts.
Okay.
So,
team anyway, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think in Austria there are now so many programs. There are so many investors and people you can reach out to, and I believe many of them are also willing to help you. I think it must be transparent. It shouldn't be like a professor that has a long-standing reputation gets better terms than a young tech team. It should be standardized, and we need corridors. I hope that we can really shift the discussion towards a system that works and that is fast.
Is this happening, Rudolf, right now?
I am very confident.
Okay. What's the timeline? Can you give us some, if you're allowed to, any insights on that process?
So the deadline to submit the proposal to in this program was last Thursday. As far as I know, AWS is screening the entries right now, and I know that 13 universities initially indicated interested in submitting a proposal. I don't know if all of them have submitted, but I would be positive that there would probably be 9, 10, or 11 who actually did it. And yeah, and the jury meeting is already next week, so the decisions will be taken pretty soon and fast.
And universities would, in this model, take equity for providing the IP to the company, or would they also invest cash?
Different models.
Okay.
I think that depends on the university. So the more deep tech universities, like the tech universities, life sciences, they do have leverage with IP. In our case at VU, there is no IP to transform into equity. So we are thinking of other ways.
Rudolf, from enterprise perspective, for me it sounds like a next step in professionalizing academia, entering the entrepreneurship scene, let's call it that way. Would you share this opinion?
Yeah, and I think probably a good idea is to have a look outside the boundaries as well, outside Austria, what the others are doing. And I think this conference is a good place for that, because we have international speakers who talk about their experience and probably take them as a role model or as a best practice example, and then see what we can implement here in Austria. Yeah.
Maybe final thought for all four of you. University as shareholder, university as somebody who's charging royalties. What is the future model for Austria? What's the future way to go?
Can I talk about something else?
Yeah.
No, there's really one thing that comes to my mind. I think in the second year of the Spin-off Austria conference, we discussed if universities want to make money with the spin-offs. You know, whether it's royalties, but I think the shareholding could be really interesting because they can stay for a very long time in a company. You know, and everybody said no. That's not the main reason. And I'm wondering if this is now changing. Also with what is now happening with the AWS initiative.
So from what I see, it still holds that the universities are not doing this in order to make money, but see this rather as a natural development with regards to their entrepreneurship support activities that they do. So to basically help the spin-offs and startups to gain speed for the next step of the development. And if there is an upside and an opportunity to make money, of course, no one will be sad about that. But that's not the main interest. It's really supporting young people, supporting talents, and getting and improving on the knowledge and tech transfer.
Also in terms of KPIs that you measure. Okay. Markus?
Well, I think to create the most value for Austria, there's two parameters that need to be optimized. One is maximize the success rate of the spin-offs, and the other one is increase the number of spin-offs. I think by taking equity from the companies, you typically do not increase their success rates. So in that sense, I'm clearly voting for royalties. But if it can help the universities, incentivizing them to pushing their researchers to create more spin-offs, a lot more spin-offs, by saying if you have more spin-offs and you get shares in those spin-offs and they will take off and they will give more money to the universities, you have more money for research, etc., then it might pay off. But I cannot answer that second part.
Okay. Any comment to that, Rudolf?
No, I like your point.
Cool.
I mean, just one thing to me, like from where I'm coming from, what we are doing, it's basically a numbers game, and always for competitive sports, you need mass sports, and so the higher the number of people we get involved in this, the higher the likelihood that we really have the big shots in there.
Great.
Yeah, I would say for all parties involved, don't count your chickens before they are hatched.
Fantastic. That's a great final words of this panel. Thank you very much for being with us, for your time, and thank you for all your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Lisa, over to you.